Happy Saturday, early afternoon. I am excited about the conversation I want to have with you guys today. I'm going to give a few seconds here to see if anybody happens to be browsing around the group and wants to jump on and join me on this Facebook Live. So we'll see. I have an exciting announcement. Maybe I'll just make that for the next few seconds. Tomorrow at about 4:30-ish Pacific Standard Time, I'm doing a wonderful interview with one of my clients that I think you don't want to miss. So her name's Maggie, and I have to admit, I actually called her Molly in one of my Facebook Lives, and that was purely to protect her identity, but she doesn't really mind. So we're going to go forward calling Maggie, and you'll get to meet her tomorrow at around 4:30, 4:40 Pacific Standard Time. So mark it on your calendar. She's a fabulous girl. We'll be sharing a screen. She's coming into my office to share with you some of the things that worked for her and that might work for your daughter. Okay, but the topic of today's Facebook Live is traditional school, online school, or homeschool. Which choice is best for your daughter? I get this question all the time, and I've seen this question pop up in the Facebook group probably 10 or 15 times already. So I knew that I wanted to take the time to share with you how I advise families that I work with on this very topic. So it's a tricky thing. What's interesting is I bet if I could ask you guys to give like a show of hands, which I can't see you, but if I asked you for a show of hands as to how many of you have had this request, hey mom, I want to homeschool, or hey mom or dad, I want to do online school, I would bet almost every single one of your hands would go up. Which makes sense because what we're talking about here is social anxiety. So of course, girls want to escape the thing that scares them the most, constant social interaction with peers. It's terrifying. So I just will make a blanket statement that you probably had her say, hey, can I not go to traditional school? I know that you've probably handled it in all sorts of different ways. Everybody has a unique story. But when families come to me looking for advice, I always ask them about three things in particular. Number one, I want to know what their daughter's concrete reasons for leaving the traditional school system are. There can be a whole host of them, but in my opinion, some matter more than others. Like, is she being actively bullied? Is she scared when she goes to school for her personal safety? Is she having suicidal thoughts and ideations, or is she actively suicidal? These things I don't mess around with. I just say yes, mental health and well-being first. Let her do an online school or a homeschool while you get that stuff sorted out. But I also really highly recommend that once you're out of that danger zone or that fire, that you get her back into a traditional school. Because the thing about anxiety is the only way that you can overcome it or work through it is by being in the thing that scares you the most. So the comfort of home is nice, and that's what girls want. That's why they ask for online school or homeschooling. That's great. But the idea is that for some girls, making that choice is actually counterproductive because their sole reason for not wanting to go to school anymore is simply that it's uncomfortable. Those girls, the ones where it's just uncomfortable, they're not being bullied, they're not suicidal, I recommend that those girls stay in traditional school with a couple of tweaks as needed. So my number one thing, what are her concrete reasons? Most of those reasons can be worked through, but if they can't, mental health and well-being first. Number two, what level is her anxiety at and why? So is school causing her to have symptoms that you don't want to deal with? Like there's girls who pull hair, who self-harm, who pick at their skin. If these things are going on, that means her level of anxiety is pretty high. So maybe looking at a non-traditional route for schooling is a good thing, along with several other steps that should be put into place. So why is your daughter struggling? Is it because one of her friends isn't being nice to her anymore? To me, that one you might want to consider helping her work through. I actually, as a mom, had to make this choice last year for my middle child. And I went against what everybody else thought, and I went for a non-traditional homeschooling route because my son's anxiety was so high that he was throwing up every morning, sobbing. I would literally have to pick him up, and he's about my size, and put him in the car on a daily basis. So for me, we decided to homeschool, but we only did that for 6 months while I got him the support and services he needed and built up his self-confidence again through powerful CBT and DBT skills that I use in my office, in my private practice. And he re-entered the traditional school in the fall. So that worked for us. So number one, the first thing is, what are her concrete reasons for wanting to homeschool? Number two, what level is her anxiety at and why? And number three, what are her other avenues for social interaction? This one's very important. I don't recommend homeschooling or online schooling a girl that doesn't have any other outlet for social interaction. And that can be things like sports. You can always still participate in traditional school sports and traditional clubs if you decide to homeschool. The online school varies. Are you doing a private online school or a public online school? So the rules vary a little bit, so you need to check with your own particular school district. But she needs to be doing something that gets her interacting with peers as much as possible during the week. Dance, theater, horseback riding, all of the sports work, obviously, youth groups, volunteering. So just getting her out in the community all the time, because social anxiety grows if you're at home, in your room, in your safe zone. Getting out and doing things out in public becomes scarier and scarier. So that's another thing to consider while you're making this difficult decision. Do you give your daughter what she's wishing for, homeschool or online school, or do you keep her where she's at? Okay, so those are the three things that we start with every single time, is discussing those three things. But I'm gonna also share why I think traditional school, it doesn't really matter to me whether it's public or private, but I believe traditional school is the best option when possible. The reason being that is a learning ground for your daughter, that every day she can go and she can practice and work through the things that are tough for her. I think that being out every day, being exposed to the thing that scares you, if you have a plan on how to get through those things, is really powerful, and that it can actually become almost like a therapeutic exercise to go to school and try things in a different way. So I do believe that. Another thing that I've noticed is that girls, sometimes a really good option is changing schools. So if the bullying thing is happening, or if she's just not making friends, or if she has you convinced that everybody at the school is mean, which happens a lot, you might want to just sit down and take a look at the different schools that are an option in your district. Now, what I'm going to say next is very important. Simply switching schools or moving from 8th grade into high school isn't enough, because what happens is girls will romanticize the move, and they'll think, oh, once I'm at B school, A school, problems aren't going to happen anymore. I'm going to have friends. I'm going to get a boyfriend. I'm going to go to the dances. I'm going to have a social life. They build up this vision in their heads, and it's so catastrophic when they move schools and they see that actually isn't the case, because what happens is that everywhere you go, there you are. So she's practiced this set of daily habits and beliefs that maybe close her down and don't make her open to building friendships. So all these things that the way she walks through the hall, the way she looks at her books when she sits down instead of talking to her neighbor, the way she finds somewhere quiet to eat and doesn't engage in conversations, unless she learns new tools, those things are going to follow her to the next school. So as your daughter's thinking about moving from 8th grade into high school, or daydreaming about switching schools or switching districts even, just be sure that in between that move or that new fresh transition, you give her the tools to have things be different. Yeah, it's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right? So it's a very powerful time to look for some coaching or some mentoring if your daughter is making the shift into high school next year. Perfect timing. You have between now, spring, all the way through summer to make things different for her. Give her the tools she needs so that she can walk into her high school and be that girl that she knows she can be. If you are considering moving schools, same thing. Don't make the move until your daughter has learned the new skills and the new tools so that that first day of the new school, she can work towards making things actively different. Because everywhere you go, there you are. So if she hasn't learned anything new, the chances are that the same situation, the chances are it's going to be exactly the same at the new school. So we've covered a couple of important things really quickly because I'm in between clients right now, but we've talked about the 3 things to consider if your daughter is asking you to homeschool or online school. 1, check her concrete reasons, like logical reasons. What are those reasons for wanting to switch? 2, take into consideration the level of her anxiety and why it's where it's at. And 3, what are her other avenues for social interaction? Very, very important not to give up on the social interaction. Of course, if she's feeling suicidal, do what it takes, mental health and well-being before school, every day, all day. Okay, next, if you are in a transition phase where you're looking to switch schools or switching from middle school to high school, do everything that's in your power to give her the skills so that she can go into that next phase of her life and actually have things be different. It's amazing what happens when you give girls the tools, they become more confident, and then they're excited to go out and try. And with the proper support and accountability, that can be magical. So take advantage if you have a natural transition coming up for your child. I believe that the best solution is traditional school because we want to keep girls working through the challenge. And for girls with social anxiety, being at school is the biggest challenge. So there's opportunity there. There's like a playing ground, if you will, for a chance for her to figure this out and work through it so that by the time she goes off to college, things can be different. Everybody's story is different. You know more details about your life than I do, but this is the path that I follow. When families call me and they say, what do we do? My daughter wants to homeschool. I don't know how to homeschool. My daughter wants to do online school. Can she handle online school? This is exactly what I would share with those families. So thank you for listening. Remember, tomorrow we're going to meet with Maggie at about 4:40-ish Pacific Standard Time, and she'll be you'll just really love her. She's a total dear, and she's had a lot of experience in her four short years in high school. She's about to graduate. She's going off to a wonderful college in California, but she wants to really share the journey through her social anxiety the first 2-3 years in high school. Okay, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you for doing a great job in this group. Quick reminder to keep it a safe place. I don't really see the point of debating people's decisions on the Facebook page because that actually discourages people who are looking for this to be a safe place to share what's going on with their families. So offer encouragement all day long. Offer advice if you've been through it and found a solution that works. But if you haven't and you're still struggling too, just offer encouragement. That's what everybody needs. That's what you need. So debating things, I mean, PM me if you want to debate me. I love that. But maybe not to each other because everybody's here is in a bit of a fragile state, trying to figure out how to find a solution for their daughter. So really this is a place of encouragement rather than a place to kind of like pick apart people's choices. I think you understand what I mean. It's been fun. I think we have one person on with us today, and hopefully the rest will catch it on a replay. Again, topic was what school choice is best for your daughter, because hands down, I bet she's asked you that question. Can I homeschool? Can I online school? So watch, take a few notes, and let me know what sort of conversations you've had on this very topic with your daughter. Bye-bye. Have a good day.